Today's episode of Market Talk is brought to you in part by Growmark FS. Keeping up on the latest in ag is a challenge to say the least, but there are experts nearby ready to help. You'll find them at your local FS. You can trust them to bring you customized agronomic grain and energy solutions born of the latest thinking. That's because FS specialists receive continuous training that keeps them current on the latest trends, practices, and technologies. So you'll get local expertise that's both exceptional and up to date. Visit fssystem.com to learn how FS is bringing you what's next. And welcome into Market Talk here as we're live today at Dakota Fest in Mitchell, South Dakota, broadcasting on location here for the next 3 days of the event here, and happy to be out at a farm show, out with the public here, and being able to experience everything going on with Dakota Fest. First time for me here, and happy to be here for the show in 2021. We got a packed lineup today, but first let's get to our market analysis and bring in on the phone with us our good friend Bill Biedermann with agmarket.net. And Bill, great to have you back on Market Talk, sir. Looking at the grain trade today, for the most part, it's a pretty quiet, choppy day out there today. What are you seeing overall with this grain market right now, Bill?
Jesse, we're just stuck in a really sideways market right now, and traders are, on the bullish side, looking at the crop conditions declining and looking at the USDA's report that they released last week, and still trying to reconcile how we're going to make it through the next 8 months and have enough grain to go around. On the other side of that, we got the Pro Farmer Crop Tour out, and they're going through the best two states here in the next 2 days. So we're kind of afraid of all those pictures we're seeing.
Well, and, looking at that Pro Farmer Crop Tour, I know the Ohio yield came in a little higher than expected yesterday for corn. South Dakota came in a little lower than that 3-year average, which was probably as expected. And, watching the updates from that tour, it seems like that the trade really is kind of just waiting until we get all those numbers in here and decide what we're going to have for an overall corn yield idea. But it just seems like the trade is maybe just kind of playing, biding time until we get those final numbers in on Friday.
Yeah, I think the final numbers are going to be important. We all know that USDA usually comes in higher than Pro Farmer, but the Pro Farmer direction of yield is very important to look at, because that's typically the direction we head in the next report. And it'll be interesting to see how they come up and put it all together. And, of course, what they see out in the field and they survey, those numbers that we see on a state-to-state breakdown, that's not necessarily their national yield estimate. They still run it through their own formulas to come up with what they think USDA will say.
Well, and looking as well at our markets, especially the corn side, we've kind of been stuck in this rut, as you mentioned. We've kind of been trading that 550 window. We've bumped a little bit above that here after the report last week. And, looking at soybeans as well, we've kind of been in that 1360 to 1380 window, it seems, here after we got past the report. But overall, corn and soybeans, it seems like there's a lot of good money to be made out there, good price levels, good action, and it seems like a lot of farmers, if they were smart, they would be looking at marketing not only some new crop, but looking maybe into 2022 as well. What would you say to that, Bill?
Yeah, we're recommended to be 60% sold on new crop estimated yield, not APH. We bumped it up to, now that we have a good idea, we went to the actual projected yield. And we're comfortable with that. We are also comfortable with the idea that we're not sold on 40%, although it's good profitability. So if a guy wants to sell, that's not a big deal. I'd go ahead and sell it. Some of our clients are actually selling some product now and then turning around and getting inputs bought for 2022, because we're all afraid that those inputs are going to go through the roof. Well, they already have, but they could go even more. And so on the 2022 crop, we're penciling in some profitability here, and we're getting a little bit sold. We got a handful of new crop corn sold, and we've just sold about 20% of our estimated 22 crop on beans. We do expect a lot of acres, and so there will be some competition for that market.
On the demand side, especially in soybeans, 9th straight trading day here today. China buying some soybeans. Unknown destinations got some soybeans. So that demand picture on the soybean side seems to be ramping back up. not really seeing it on the corn side. And what would you say to what we're seeing on the demand side of the picture right now, Bill? Because, I mean, here a few months ago, we were hoping to just get any sort of sale, and now we've had 9 straight days of soybean sales.
Well, we believe that we're going to continue to see that, I guess is what I'm trying to say. USDA has a real problem with their math right now because they've got demand going from this year's export number to this coming year new crop, and they're dropping export usage in beans by 200 million bushels. Jesse, that's not going to happen. People need these beans. Unless we see a massive herd reduction somewhere, we're going to use this stuff. And it's the same with corn. Their projected exports on corn dropped by 300 and some million bushels. I mean, that's kind of absurd to really think about, especially when even if you could argue that somebody wanted to politically avoid the U.S., they can't go to Brazil. Brazil does not have the corn to sell. So it's a math problem, and the market's going to have to realize that these demand numbers are underestimated. And in order to get the demand down to these levels, the market's going to have to do its job to shift demand around or ration.
Let's talk the wheat market, Bill, and the wheat market under some pretty strong pressure today. I know the U.S. dollar weighing on that. The stock market itself, we're seeing some losses there that are weighing on the entire commodity sector. Is the losses in wheat, is that stock market, outside market driven today in your opinion, or is it something else that we're watching in the wheat markets?
My own personal opinion, Jesse, is this is all outside pressure today. The funds were short wheat, got caught with a very bullish scenario with the spring wheat and Canadian wheat and Russian wheat. So they came in and they went to a long position of about 40,000. And then with all of the outside market pressure and concerns about COVID and economic decline, the markets are just getting hit really hard. I would consider today just a risk-off day.
Fair enough, Bill. Looking as well here, looking at some of the outside market pressures, and one has to wonder if some of those geopolitical concerns that we're watching are going to weigh on the markets here, and with the Dow down and everything else, and crude oil down a little bit today. As we move forward here through the next week or so, do you think we're going to see some of those geopolitical factors and other things really weigh on our markets, or do you think everything's going to balance itself out with the crop tour numbers and the weather situation? We're looking at maybe some rains here later this week that could help the soybean crop a little bit. Do you think that's all going to balance itself out here this week and keep us fairly neutral?
I think in the bigger picture, yes. If you go down to the point or the center point of the triangle we've been trading sideways in, you're going to get beans back down to the 1340 area, with key support being down around $13. And on the corn, we're trading at 563, and really the major support, or the bulk of the consolidating price traded at is closer to the 550 level. So we could go down to 550 with major support at the 540 level. That would just be probably a buying opportunity for those who are in the industry and needing to buy grain.
Very, very true. Bill, any other final thoughts you have for us? I know we didn't touch much on livestock. I know cattle markets have been fairly mixed here today. If you want to touch on some of the cattle side, or if you just have any other final thoughts for us in general here today on Market Talk.
Yeah, I think in general, you just have to be patient at this time of year. If you're wanting to sell, you're probably going to get an opportunity to sell at higher prices down the road. But remember, these are markets, and we're at the time of year where typically we back away from these markets because we're moving towards harvest and supply availability should increase. So, be patient if you're waiting for rallies to sell. If you need to get stuff sold, you might want to step up your game and get it done. We're at a really profitable price, and it's you just can't complain at these levels.
Bill, I know if producers need a little advice, they can reach out to you and the team there at agmarket.net very easily. You guys have an app that they could download, or they can give you guys a phone call and check out the website, can't they?
Yeah, we would love to talk to people who are looking for a visit, a visit of what to do, and a lot of things to think about, especially with these input costs. It might be smart to market some grain, even if you want to replace it out in July with some options or something like that. But get positioned for next year. 2022 is going to be a much more challenging year. because we have a mature market, getting more mature, and we've got higher inputs.
Well, you can find them and all their information online, agmarket.net. With that, Bill Biedermann, thank you for joining us here on the phone today, sir, and we appreciate it. We will talk to you again soon.
Okay, thanks, Jesse. Have fun out there.
Well, that's comments with Bill Biedermann of agmarket.net joining us for our market analysis here today. I mentioned we are live at Dakota Fest in Mitchell, South Dakota here for the entire week, and a lot of discussions being had around the grounds about a myriad of topics, one of which I got to MC today was a great discussion on the cattle markets. And the question that was posed as the title of the panel was, can cattle markets be fixed? We were joined by the president of the South Dakota Farm Bureau, Scott Vanderwall, president of the South Dakota Cattlemen's Association, Eric Jennings, and the regional director from RCAF, Brett Kenzy. And I got to talk with Brett afterwards about some of his thoughts about what he heard in the panel, what he heard from cattle ranchers who were in attendance, and much more. Let's listen to that interview I had with Brett Kenzy. Jesse Allen here, being joined by Brett Kenzy, the Region 3 Director for RCAF USA. And Brett, we just wrapped up a very interesting panel discussion here at Dakota Fest. And we're talking about the cattle markets, and I know there's a lot of issues right now in cattle country that we're facing. I mean, one of the big things we talked about here was packer margins and looking at that whole situation. Talk about just some of what you took away from the panel discussion here and some of the things that our cattle men and women are facing right now.
Well, I think that we're all realizing that we have a universal need of a market. We need a functioning competitive market so that we can get our due return of the value that we create. Beef is such a big part of South Dakota and surrounding states, and we're facing drought. And then you add on to that these market problems that we've got. And I guess I hope the message of today, as I sat with South Dakota Cattlemen's and Farm Bureau, is that we're trying to get along and we're trying to go forward together. We're challenging one another, but we know that it'll take all of us to really get something done, because it takes a lot of oars in the water rowing together to get anything through the swamp of Washington, D.C. So
you made the comment that, some disagreements on the panel today, but for the most part, you said 95%, most of the groups, you mentioned Farm Bureau, South Dakota Cattlemen's, RCAF, you agree on things. It's just that kind of that 5%, and it's, you alluded to it, working together is going to be about the only way to really get something done at this point. We look at the Packers and Stockyards Act, and that's something that it's like, okay, are we going to enforce that or not, or what are we going to do? But it all comes back to working together, doesn't it?
Well, it does, and I don't think look, it's my sincere hope that working together doesn't mean that one of us concedes or all of us concede to the least common denominator because it's easy. I hope that working together means that we can challenge one another to get to what's really right, because things have really come a gentleman in the audience said, strike while the iron's hot. Things really have come to such a degree that everybody realizes that there's a problem. And so I hope we can challenge each other with a smile on our face, not because these issues are light, but because these are the times we live in, and we've got to find a way forward. We've got to find a way through it, and we have to be soft enough to get together and hard enough to hold the line and to poke holes in each other's ideas so that we really do put forth the best idea in the end. And that's more than money or power. We should, in this country, be able to determine right and wrong, and I guess that's my goal.
And I know as well there was a lot of discussion about a few different bills that are out there right now, Senator Grassley, Senator Fisher, and a lot of discussion about things that, maybe they're too blanket or things that a lot of folks don't agree upon. So, you talk about working together, and, I know you mentioned this a few times, and to folks in the panel said, hey, call your congressman, call your congresswomen in Washington, D.C. to let them know what's going on, because otherwise we're looking at these bills where a lot of folks maybe don't agree with everything that's in them.
Yeah, it's just paramount it means more when you get involved personally. I mean, it's a learning curve, but a lot of this stuff isn't incredibly complicated. But we have to have the average American average. I'll say that with air quote. There's no such thing as average, but we've just got to have real Americans involved in this. And if you've got something to say, you've got to say it. You know, part of getting up on these panels is you can't be afraid of getting proved wrong, because even if you get proved wrong, you've learned something in that pursuit. And so I do challenge people. That congressional switchboard number 202-224-3121, it'll pipe you through with the prompts to any congressman and senator in the United States of America, and you just have to let them know that real Americans are out here and real Americans are interested, and we want to get something done, because that creates the energy behind all of these ideas that we're talking about.
A lot of discussions yet to be had, and hopefully we will have those tough discussions and we'll be able to see everyone work together. And Brett, I appreciate the time. Thanks for joining me here at Dakota Fest and just sharing some of your thoughts. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, you bet. I appreciate you being here. I appreciate the panel, and just invite everybody to come out to the RCAF convention in Rapid City if they're inclined the rest of this week, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday.
And if you would like to listen back to the full panel discussion that we had with Scott Vanderwall, Brett Kenzy, and Eric Jennings, you can find that link at markettalkag.com. It'll take you to the Dakota Fest website where you can watch that video back here today. And that's going to do it for Market Talk here for this Tuesday, August 17th. We'll be back tomorrow with another show live from Dakota Fest here in Mitchell, South Dakota. For now, I'm Jesse Allen, wishing you a great afternoon and a great evening.